Well, before we jump into Dominion, I just kind of want to do a mid-year check-in with you since, we're about halfway through the year now, through the calendar year for New Japan. So first, just overall thoughts on New Japan 2025 so far.
I think the lift that New Japan has gotten in positive vibes from the Hirooki Goto championship reign is incredible. I don't know how sustainable that is or how long it can go, but I think we're still there. So we have that going for us. I have been, I don't want to say disappointed, but I have not been thrilled with either of the major tournaments. I thought that the New Japan Cup ended up not delivering as much as I wanted it to, and the stories of the tournament, the ones that kind of flowed through, were less than engaging, I think. And same with Best Super Juniors. I think that's what it comes down to. When I think about Best Super Juniors, I went into that tournament pretty excited and pretty positive with with the roster that they had brought forward. And when it comes down to it, the wrestling was good. I was talking to someone, and what I said my favorite thing about Best of Super Juniors, and this was after the Corkins even, I was like, high floor, low ceiling, right? You're probably not going to get a bunch of 5-star, oh my God, everyone's got to see this matches, but you're going to get a bunch of 4. You're going to get quite a few 4-star, whatever matches. And I'm not a star rater, but that's just a good way to talk about it, right? But you're not going to get much of the, 2-star specials, right? And I think that did sort of turn out to be true, but like it really all came to the middle. I think there was and to me, it really comes down to the booking. And I think the booking they didn't have enough stories of the tournament. I think the block nights could have been any night on the tour. They could have been, night 4. They didn't feel like it was a climax. It didn't feel like it was the end of anything. And part of that's probably like being in essentially a gymnasium with the house lights on and all that. But and that was sort of the case with New Japan Cup too, where like it never felt like there was a groundswell behind someone, like when everyone got behind Hirooki Goto. And with every one of his defenses, the cool thing about a champion like Hirooki Goto that we haven't really had in New Japan for a while now is that he can lose. He can lose any of these matches. And, maybe not like the Nagata match, but like everyone else that he's fought, you go into it thinking like, maybe this is it. And like, we're going to talk about another one coming up here, right? In just a couple days. And I think that's the best champion. I think a best babyface champion, maybe best heel champion too. But so yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of where I'm at. I think nuts and bolts wise, it's been a fine first half of the year. I think Dominion might tell us some stuff. There's a lot going on here, but there hasn't been anything super exciting since the Goto title. And that's sometimes it's at least it's not embarrassing. And we've had some periods of time where it was sort of embarrassing and to have to defend what's happening, especially like in like a main event scene. It's funny. I feel the same way about
world champion.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I'm sure I was on a show trying to defend that in 2020 or 2021 or whatever. Like, I'm sure someone can go back and find it if they really wanted to, where I'm like, this is cool. It's kind of neat. And I don't know if I would do that again because I didn't think it was going to go on for this long, but or like House of Torture was going to be this type of thing for this long, even though they've sort of settled in where they are. But yeah, and it's funny. I mean, I feel the same way about my Chicago White Sox baseball. I mean, like they're still not as good as they've ever been, but they're not embarrassing anymore. And that was all I was asking of them. I would like a little more out of my New Japan. Don't get me wrong. I think the roster is great and the talent is awesome. I do think it's the booking. And that sucks for me because that when I can't, tie together the booking to the results, that sucks. That's what I've always really liked. That's how I ended up doing what I do, is because it was so easy to tie the booking to the result, and the statistics and the time people are spending in the ring and everything else and all the other bits and bobs. And there's a lot of stuff that's just coming out of left field and kind of random right now. But I think the G1 is always the tell about what the year looks like, and I'm hopeful that we get a little bit more information about what the G1 looks like sooner than later. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's been some out of the ring stories. Naito leaving obviously is humongous, right? But other than that, I think it's mixed bag. I guess that's the only way to say it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like it's been a very kind of up and down year. I feel like there's been some highlights, but also just kind of some like, all right, where are they going? Like you said, nothing bad or embarrassing, but just kind of like, all right, like the booking is not maybe lining up. Like you said, a lot of times wins and losses should count, or the match time, who's getting these main events, and sometimes that's not even adding up to who's getting pushed and what's next and who's getting in title matches. And so, yeah, it's a little weird when it ends up like that. And I feel like they've really failed to capitalize on some of the exciting things that have happened throughout the year. I feel like, January, you had all the buzz around the Gabe Kid Kenny Omega match, and then you follow up with the Gabe Kid Tsuji match, which, even though it had the horrible, double knockout finish, it was still an incredible matchup, and there was so much buzz.
I don't even know if that was a horrible finish. It just it was the best way out.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't love how Tsuji was pretty much on his feet. He should have just stayed down.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
But yeah, and you mentioned not loving the tournaments, and I feel like New Japan Cup, the two hottest guys, Gabe Kid and Tsuji, were out pretty early. And so it's we just saw that great match, and they're all the buzz, and then they're out. And it's all right, who are we really supposed to follow here? And then, I mean, Dave Finley winning was cool, and I think everybody kind of had him circled based off of him possibly winning the previous year and the illness and all that stuff, which Finley's awesome. He's been doing a great job, but it felt like, I don't know, I would have rather seen Gabe Kid or Tsuji really ascend and go deep in that tournament, because those seem to be two young guys who are hot, who are catching fire, that we should be following throughout this year, and then they were just gone.
Yeah, I agree.
And then Goto's world title reign, I mean, that's been awesome, and I think that's been a great kind of nostalgia run, and Goto's been killing it. And like you said, it's his title matches. You don't know, he could have easily lost to Tanahashi. They keep trying to push Umino. He could have lost Umino in Chicago. That would have been disastrous.
That we were sitting there thinking, well, when it wasn't the main event, we all looked at each other and said, all right, well, good. We got out of this one.
Yeah. He could have lost to Zach in California. He had very believable challengers that.
Man, I got it. I have to jump in. That was a horrible finish.
Yeah.
the Zach Goto. I just have to say that out loud, so it's out there and that people have heard that I think that finish sucked. That's all. But go on. Carry on.
Yeah, not a great finish. And yeah, and so the Goto title reign's been great, and it's been a good thing. But yeah, I just feel like maybe some other parts of the card haven't maybe equal the level of what Goto has been doing. And yeah, I feel like they dropped the ball with Tsuji and Gabe Kid. And then, yeah, Best Super Juniors, like you mentioned, that should be a highlight of the calendar year, and it was just fine. The final match with Yo and Vegeta, and then Hiromu and Akira are your top end matches of the tournament, and everything else is just, like you said, that 4 stars, 3.5, 4 stars, which obviously that's good, and it's good to watch good wrestling. But historically, this tournament has produced some match of the year contenders in line with the heavyweights, where at the end of the year you're like, oh man, Will Ospreay and Shingo, that could be match of the year. And I get it, not everybody's on their level, right. but still, I feel like, I was talking to Josh about it today. I was like, yeah, they had an embarrassment of talent in this tournament. It's Akira, Hiromu, Ninja Mac, Mao, like all these are really cool guys, Nick Wayne, Kevin Knight, and it's like, what happened?
And well, I mean, I think there have been periods of time when I've been really positive on New Japan, like the booking staying stoic and sticking with the plan. Now doesn't feel like the time to do that.
Yeah.
Even though I don't feel like that's where this Goto title reign came from, right? I feel like I don't feel like Goto was the plan. So I think that's why I've enjoyed it so much, because it feels so much like it's not the plan. And that adds this air of mystery to it. But that's the only kind of thing that's happening right now. I mean, Takeshita with the Never title is cool, but like we all know the story there. Like who's beating him? And when you think about all the titles, it's just like none of the titles are really, really, really hitting. Besides the main event, and you can only tap into that so often because it's the big title, right? You can only do that so many times throughout the year, and it's got to be on the big shows. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a year where even though it may already have been written, like maybe you need to throw out the plans and not put Yo in the best Super Junior final. That's it, like and I know Yo has his fans and the crowd got really into that match, don't get me wrong, but depending on your priorities, like he ain't it, that he's not exciting.
Yeah,
So
I think it's a problem when your fan base as a whole is not even. He was nobody's prediction of going to the finals. Nobody took Yo seriously. And he's out here with his Ziploc bags and kissing everybody, and it's like there's no way he's got to get to the final. And then he does, and it's like, what?
yeah,
How? Why?
I mean, yeah, it's like, yeah, why? Like, why is the question, right? Like, what did Yo gain from going to that final? I got it when they went with him in 2021. They wanted to put him in that spot and like start to build him up. But he's not that. He's not that guy. I'm obviously I'm glad they went with Fujita. I mean, Fujita is awesome, right? Like that's exciting. But then the turnaround of it is that he doesn't get the big match on Dominion, and that's okay. I get it. I get that. And I know that we'll talk about that too. So, but I'd be hyped to talk about that match right now. And I think you always want to put those types of matches on the biggest show you can, even if it's not the main event. So yeah, I think we're generally on the same page here.
Yeah, and at this point of the year, who's your wrestler of the year so far?
Probably Goto. Just on vibes. The matches have delivered. The matches have delivered. I've been impressed with the output. I've been impressed with the fans, the fan response. Yeah, so I think I'd have to go with Goto. I don't know, depending on how long he holds the belt and what his G1 looks like. I don't know. I don't have a ton of confidence that it's going to stay that way. But here on June 9th, yeah, it's got to be him.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Definitely early front runner for New Japan Wrestler of the Year. Like you mentioned, great title defenses, great matches, popping business. So if you want to throw the business metrics in there, like he's a all around what you want from a main eventer. Somebody connects with the crowd, good matches, good business, and yeah, we don't know when the revolution is going to end, but 6 months in, if he continues to have another 6 months like this, I could easily see him capturing like Wrestler of the Year in our awards and in some other New Japan fan awards.
Yeah, if he holds through Wrestle Kingdom, and I know your year ends a little bit earlier than that, but I think if he holds through Wrestle Kingdom, I think it's pretty likely that he's going to stay in that space in my brain, at least in New Japan. Someone would have to have a really good G1 and something really hot come through towards the tail end of the year.
Yeah. How about match of the year so far in New Japan? What's your top or maybe top couple?
I mean, just Gabe Kenny counts, right? I mean, like that's gotta be.
I count that.
That's gotta be it. I mean, I think that was that was incredible. I think maybe live bump, but Takeshita Tanahashi was awesome. I thought I had a great time during that match. I just thought they told a story, just in one match. They told a story. They tied back to a lot of history, and that's just extremely my shit. So like I was really, and I was there with you guys, with my wife, with X-Pac behind us, like like I think about that guy more than I should. I don't
He's
know.
probably watching Monday Night Raw right now.
He's got to be. I mean, like, how can you not? He's probably in full gear again.
Yeah.
Have you told that story on the air? I mean, like,
yeah, I think we talked about him on the review. Yeah.
Yeah. This man sitting behind us in full X-Pac gear. I mean, full on.
The jersey, the bandana.
Yep. The tights. It was everything. I was so impressed. I wasn't like, yeah, sure. They were chatty behind us, whatever.
Yeah.
But I couldn't even be mad. Yeah. So that helped that one. I think that like those are the two that stand out to me. I know there's been other matches that I've really enjoyed. I really liked Fujita Hiromu from Korakuen. I really liked Akira Hiromu from Korakuen. So there was some really high end stuff. I think at the beginning of the Best of Super Juniors, I think that's part of why it being close to the beginning, I think is part of why I ended up sort of down on the tournament, because the really great stuff happened early. But it was
after that, it was a slog after that.
Yeah, but if you're just looking at matches, like those were great matches, and Korakuen is legendary. So yeah, I think that's the stuff that really stands out to me. What about you? What do you got?
Yeah, definitely Gabe Kenny was probably my number one. Tsuji and Gabe, even though it had the horrible finish, like that's definitely up there for me. Goto and Zach, the first one, Goto beating Zach for the title, I think has to be up there. Despy and Akira from Korakuen, that title match I would put up there. So yeah, so pretty much on the same line with you, but those are definitely the other ones. And yeah, the Tanahashi Takeshita matchup was awesome as well. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, so there's been really good stuff. It's just spread out a little bit.
Yeah. And also we had a lot of faction shakeup this year. We had Chaos dissolving in Hantai, just 4, 5, whatever they are, just 4 guys going into Hantai as well. LIJ is now gone. We've had some departures from United Empire. Seems like all the factions have shaken up in some way. What are your thoughts overall on the factions this year?
Gosh, I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop. Like we gotta do something here, right? Like everyone's just kind of ending up kind of all together.
Yeah.
And I am pro faction shakeups. I like Dragon Gate. So like that's what they do. They like do unit disbands and all that stuff. And I've always thought that was really neat. And when House of Torture and Bullet Club started to do their thing, I was like, oh, maybe they'll finally do a unit disbands match or whatever it may be. And it's same deal. Like it feels like the booking nut doesn't see any of this coming, and they're just like they're not making any sort of bold moves. And that I am a fan of a bold move. So like I'm waiting for it. And at this point, I'm not sure when these things start to shake out.
Yeah.
I think we were talking off air a little bit. I think everyone in the office is trying to keep everyone in the ring happy individually, but they're not focused on the collective growth or stability of New Japan. And that's why you see 50-50 booking, and you see guys not in the unit they don't want to be in, or that like they're almost letting the wrestler, it almost feels like they're letting the wrestlers run the show. And you know, I mean, we all lived through the 80s and 90s, and well, some of us lived through the 80s and 90s, and have looked back at some of that wrestling, and like it doesn't work. And then you've got guys leaving, right? You've got high end, top tier guys leaving, retiring, etc. Like, I mean, we gotta move. We gotta get a move on it. So yeah, the faction stuff is fascinating to me. I have so many thoughts about what I hope they do. But I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even know. I don't even know what's realistic. And I always want to hope for something realistic more than anything. And I don't know that I have any hopes like that.
Yeah, and I feel like the fan base is kind of desperate for it. There's a lot of people who who's going to be the leader of Empire, and people are fantasy booking that. There are people who are fantasy booking, what's going to happen with the leftovers of Lij. Like, is Shingo going to turn heel and start a unit? And then Shota Umino, is he going to turn heel and start a unit? What's happening with all these guys in Hantai? Like, so all these fantasy booking and discussions on what's going on with these guys, and like you mentioned, they're taking kind of the safe route, House of Torture, Bullet Club stuff. It's like, I think disbanding them would have been a great bold move, and then you make some new units out of those pieces. But instead, I mean, it was pretty much status quo. I mean, House of Torture really wasn't part of Bullet Club besides just the name, and so
that
made it official.
Wasn't exciting. Like, that wasn't exciting. And the War Dogs don't want to be Bullet Club either. Doesn't seem like they're not.
Right. I mean, that was Finley's like whole deal.
Yeah, I think they use like a little bit of the iconography and all that, but like they don't feel like an extension of what Bullet Club has always been. They feel like their own thing, which is good. Let it, and so does House of Torture. Also good. Let it be its own thing. Like, let it move on. Like, let something die. I mean, like, I think that's a piece. Like, they just won't let anything die. And like, we made these decisions in like 2013 that they're just riding, and it's over. It's over. I think Bullet Club is over, and it's never going to make a big bounce back unless they do a Bullet Club OGs thing. And like, even that's, a short pop thing. Like, let the War Dogs stop being Bullet Club. It's okay. They want to be baby faces anyway, sort of. I mean, that's a whole nother thing that I'm positive we'll talk about. But like, I don't know, like it feels so weak-minded. And they haven't really gotten behind any of the young guys. And at this point, 2, 3, 4 of the young guys should have their own units, and they should just be like going for it with someone. Instead, they're all like second or third in the pecking order in each of their own units. And that sucks. And like, point blank, like we got to see some moves. And like, it feels like the only way someone makes their own unit or faction in New Japan is to turn heel, and it doesn't have to be like that. Every unit in New Japan starts as a heel unit, almost. I mean, like, I can't think of the last one that came up that didn't start as a heel unit.
Yeah, I mean, in that Empire, Bullet Club, Chaos, Lij, TMDK.
Yep. See?
all heels.
So like, who's next to make a big heel turn, right? And it might be Shingo, right? I think that's a good shout, but like, that is boring now. It's so because it mostly is obvious. It's usually pretty obvious what's happening. So I mean, what's wrong with just like putting some dudes together and saying like, all right. I mean, like, I know they sort of tried it with just 4 guys, but they didn't have a real leader. And then Sonata was Sonata, and when the unit's getting announced by Taka Michinoku, I mean, like, where they slot, right? Like, and even they were sort of a heel leaning
before Sonata,
yeah. So, and I don't know. I'm tired of that trope, right? Like, come up with a cooler way to make a unit or to make a faction, right? Mm-hmm. There's got to be a way. Babyface factions exist. It doesn't have to be like heel turn. This guy turns 2. He's coming with me. Jerry Maguire in the office. Who's coming with me? I'm bringing the fish. Like, you know, like Doki's with me. You know, like it doesn't have to be that way. It could just be like, oh, cool, we're all together now. Even you know, go all the way back to Suzuki-gun, right? Like, and every unit then eventually makes this turn, and eventually they kind of land where they're going to land, right? LIJ sort of baby face, but you know, a little bit iffy every now and then. You know, like Chaos Shrug, you know, like eventually it was just sort of just a loosely associated group of wrestlers. So it's been a, you know, and I don't see a way out right now. And I think that's what sort of sucks.
Yeah, well, they missed their way out. I thought, you know, I think there was natural opportunities of all these guys coming back to create units around those guys. Like from a kayfabe standpoint, why would these guys want to come back and just be, you know, third, fourth guys in a unit? Like guys like Iya Uemura should have been coming back. You know, Oiwa, and I get there's the whole Oiwa Zack connection, but I feel like those guys could have been coming back and wanting to really pave their own path and starting their own units. And you could have guys being like, oh, yeah, they're the hot, fresh talent. So I want to be in their unit. And I think you could have made it very compelling. And there could have been jumps without heel turns and just guys being like, hey, you know what? Like, this,
I'm with them now.
Yeah, this Uemura guy, like, he's, you know, catching fire, I guess, you know, Heat Storm. And I want to follow him. And and he's doing great things. And so, yeah, you could have had, you know, why not like Yoshihashi just being like, hey, I want to team with Uemura now or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And instead of just sticking him in just 5 guys or sticking, you know, Oiwa in TMDK and having Umino and Hantai, like they could have put these guys and established them having their own units. And I think that could have helped create new groups and not kind of lump everybody together.
I mean, part of it's that like every unit's got a wrestler slotted for each title when it comes down to it. I mean, usually, right? Like give or take, right? But like TMDK needed a never guy. So Oiwa, right? And it's just like I get it. At least there's like some backstory there. But like it also doesn't have to be that. None of this has to be this way. They write this stuff. Like they can do whatever they want. So
You're
like
right, yeah.
that's what's I think that's, you know, I think that's why wrestling discourse is fun, is because like you're actually looking at it as like you could tell a better story, and I think I know what that story is, and like no one really knows what's happening behind the scenes or who's leaving or who's going or who doesn't have a deal, and maybe we should stop putting titles on people that don't have contracts. I don't know, just a thought. But like, you know, United Empire is gone. Like they're just gone. Like they need new members or they need to disband or whatever it may be. And I know that there's like valuable intellectual property and all that, but like the merch sales ain't that good. So like they ain't that good for any of them, I don't think, at this point. Like if the merch sales were good, the ticket sales would be good, and the ticket sales are just fine, which leads me to believe the merch sales are just fine. So I don't know. I want them so badly to just like essentially break up the glut that's in Hantai, the entirety of it, and put them all into units, and you know, let the dads and whoever's left and be in, you know, in main unit. And because that, I think they think that that's a stronger, you know, brand than it is. But like people like New Japan Pro Wrestling, we don't need a group of wrestlers representing it, I don't think.
Right. I feel like it's kind of a very kind of old school frame of mind at this point. And so we don't need a quote unquote New Japan faction. I think we're fans of New Japan, but these guys can be doing different things. And I think one of the frustrating things, like you said, is like they can do whatever they want. Like it's not like, you know, you mentioned like your White Sox. It's like I'm sure you would love to like book all the best baseball players to be on
book
that
a win every now and then.
Right. It's like you can't do what you want there, but like in wrestling, like you could do whatever you want. And so why are we just doing the most easiest, basic, you know, boring options and not getting anything over?
There will be wrestlers, if they listen to this, who will reply to this on social media and say that the company can't do what they want because the wrestlers have a say. You're an employee, brother. Like that's what it comes down to. So you know, tell the story, act the part, or don't. You know, go home. I guess I don't know. Like that's not up to me. But like, and that's problematic, and part of that's probably systematic because of pay and travel and benefits and things of the sort, like, and just the state of wrestling as a industry, that guys have at least some say, especially if you've been around a little while, in what you do. But like when it comes down to it, there has to be someone that is sitting somewhere that says, this is the plan, period. And it's a little concerning to me that, like, we know who that is in the two major American companies, right? We know that AEW is Tony Khan, right? If something's happening on his screen and there's a win or a loss or whatever, we know that has gone through Tony, and he has made that decision. And of course, there's stories about guys who have battled back on that or whatever it may be, but when it comes down to it, he ends up making the call, or people end up sitting at home. And the same thing, I don't even know how often that would happen in WWE, but like we know who's writing the show. We know that Triple H, Paul Levesque is writing that show, and if someone said no there, I mean, same deal. They'd sit out or get fired or whatever it may be. And like, it's hard to fire a guy that doesn't have a contract. I get that, but like, you can also just not book him. They like they write it like, and so like, I don't know, someone needs to sit down and like split up the roster into like the coolest units that could be really interesting, and don't ask, just tell them what they're doing. I actually think, as someone who has worked in industries that require that a little bit, like, it's good. It's good when there's someone who's just like, this is what you need to do to be successful here. And then people are successful there, and then they stay and they don't get annoyed. Like, it's a job like anything else. It's a really neat, competitive, it's something you can grow in when you have that right opportunities to. But a good soldier is a good soldier no matter what industry you're in, and good soldiers often get rewarded if they're also really talented. And I think that's one of the missing pieces with this faction stuff, because I know that there's conversations about guys trying to, form their own units or whatever it may be. And it's just silly. Like,
and even like the United Empire stuff, where the rumors of like the guys not wanting to be a leader. It's like,
obviously what I'm referencing.
Like, why do they have a say? Like,
exactly.
Pick somebody. Like, Okan, you're the leader, and go out there and be the leader of the faction. Like,
and if you fail, you fail. And I think that's part of it, is that like, with stuff like that, like, guys don't want to be put there are probably guys in that locker room that don't want to be placed too high on the card, because I think either they feel they're not ready for it, or they feel like someone else should be in the spot. And I think there's a lot of that deference being paid that doesn't need to be paid. Just go for it. Where's the next Okada? Where's the next guy who's going to come in on day one and be like, holy cow, this dude's the dude? Whatever. Oh, cool. Okada. Was Okada ever really in Chaos? I don't know, right? Like, he was just like, that's just the banner they put on him. Like, he never cared about Chaos. Like,
right. Now, I feel like they could have had that with Tsuji, when the way he came in, and like, they could have put the belt on him. It felt like
that was the direction.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I fear this is going to be a lost generation. And it's scary to lose another generation, because I mean, what are we working with from the previous generation? Sho and Yo, right? Like,
not a great tale.
I mean, sorry, but like, it's not panning out for them either. Like, and I just, Narita and Yumura and Tsuji, like, there's talent there. I'm missing. Oh, I can't do it right now. But I fear another lost generation, and put the belt on someone, let them run, let them collect some friends, or put that whole generation together and roll with it. I think that'd be a cool way to do it too. Start splitting out the factions by when people, came in and are leaving. I think that can be a way to do it, especially since everyone's all together right now anyway. And honestly, that's sort of what the War Dogs are. It's a lot of the LA Dojo dudes from that general generation, I think. And look at that unit and how well it's been received. Like, that's a cool way to do it, because you keep everyone together, and then they can play off each other. The personalities end up working out. It's either that, or you gotta give each generation, you gotta give everyone from a generation their own unit. That's the other way to do it. Like, I don't think you need to, like, tiptoe around it. Just, like, lean into it.
Right. So to kind of close off this segment, is there anything you really want to see going into the second half of 2025?
I mean, I think I just said all of it. Yeah, I mean that, and of course I want a God. I was just looking at the calendar for the G1. I'm fearful of the G1 because I don't think they've got the right buildings. A lot of the buildings aren't available right now. I mean, it's just this really strange period of time in wrestling. The buildings aren't available. They're not doing the finals at Ryogoku. Like, it's gonna feel, and the thing about some of these buildings is that, like, they know what looks good in like, I'm confident in Dominion because they know what looks good in Osaka-cho Hall.
Yeah.
They know how to do the lighting, and, like, all of it, the presentation of it all feels different in a building that they're familiar with. And I'm really worried that they're going to end up they're going to end up in a bunch of buildings that they've never been in for the G1, and buildings that aren't necessarily prestigious to pro wrestling. So I'm hopeful that they figure that out, and that they bring a freaking lighting rig to some of these shows instead of using the house lights. That's what I want. That's what I want to see from the second half of 2025. I want to see them bring a lighting rig to every show and turn the house lights off and use, stage lighting. That I think would it would make a huge difference to me as someone who, like, pays attention to that and doesn't particularly like watching pro wrestling in gymnasiums that are clearly gymnasiums, with a basketball hoop in the background. Like, I don't mind watching wrestling like that. I shouldn't say that, because indies and other stuff that makes more sense that way, but not my New Japan. It doesn't have to be that way.
A major league promotion.
Yeah, I mean,
the
like,
number 3 company in the world.
Yeah, like, have some pride, right? Lion, be the lion, be the pride, right? Like,
where's your fighting spirit?
Yeah, like, that's what I want to see from New Japan in the second half, as well as everything else I talked about, specifically with the units and some of the young guys getting a shot. But, like, yeah, I mean, I want to see, and hopefully they, maybe they've cleared up some resources. I'm sure some folks have realized there's nothing booked in the US. There's nothing booked outside of Japan for the rest of the year, as far as I know, as far as I can tell. So I think that hopefully that's so that they can retain their resources and use them to the best of their abilities in Japan. So yeah, I think that would make a big difference to the perception of the product too.
Yeah. Yeah, we touched on some stuff. I would just say I want to see somebody get hot going into the second half of the year besides Goto. I feel like they have the talent there, and I feel like they just need to give somebody the push. There was a great audio that Joe Lanza did talking about Mercedes Moné's push, and people complaining about her, like, winning too much. Like, no, it's a push. And so, like, I want to see somebody outside of the world champion get pushed and, like, follow that person for the rest of the year and kind of culminate in something big at Wrestle Kingdom. And I would love it to be one of the young guys. I mean, right now my fantasy booking is a Tsuji Goto Tokyo Dome title match, and you have Goto run the rest of the year with the title, and Tsuji wins G1, and then you run back that New Japan Cup final matchup, that same energy, that same emotion, and you have Tsuji, win the big one in the Tokyo Dome.
I see. I love that. I would change Tsuji to Uemura, just for the sake of that. That's more of a rocket, I think. Tsuji's had a lot more of a stepped growth, and that's okay. But that to me is so cookie cutter New Japan. The stepped growth thing, and that's okay. At least they're going with someone. It does sort of feel like it's headed that direction with Tsuji losing the final last year and all that, but yeah, I would rather see someone like Uemura, who was starting to get hot when he got hurt, you know, kind of pick up some steam. And then here's what I want. I want the G1 to have someone finish their block, assuming it's 10, 10, and 10. I want someone to finish their block with 16 and someone to finish that same block with 4 points.
Yes.
Like, I want the booking to be the definitive.
Yeah, none of this parity stuff we saw in Super Juniors.
If the blocks look like that, I'm going to come on this show and I'm going to ask for a 10-minute rant. One block can look like that. I get it, right? That's fun, right? It's fun to have it, you know, everyone's tight, everyone's in it. You should sort of know that's gonna be how it goes at the beginning, though. You should look at a block and be like, God, I don't know. There's a lot of toss-ups in this. And then that's the parity block. And then there should be one block that you're sort of like, okay, that dude's going through. And he's gonna
kind of like a couple years ago with Okada and Ka, where it's like, oh, they're the top 2 guys, and yeah, they just ran through everybody in that block, and that's what you expected. It was exciting.
Jeremy, imagine this: they had a match on the last night of that block. Like, that's it's. The Super Juniors booking made me so mad. I'm so excited for people to see. My pal J. Michael is working on a piece for Voices of Wrestling that will inevitably be 80,000 words or more, but just about the booking of the Super Juniors tournament. And he's really analytical about the blocks of tournaments, not necessarily even going into the knockout rounds. I'm excited for people to see that and to have the same hopes that we do about a G1 that it has some strong booking decisions made. Because that's where I go with it, right? I don't want to attach, but that's just, I don't know, man. It feels like this is just kind of what they're doing right now because they're trying to keep everyone just a little happy. So I want some wrestlers to be pissed about their slot by the end of the
year. You want FIFO Select reports coming out. You know, so-and-so is not happy with their current push in New Japan. Plan on leaving.
I want Voices of Wrestling Patreon reports like that. I don't want to read the grammar that comes out of Fightful Select.
Yeah.